Excuse me. What are you doing here? The welfare office is 3 blocks down. Kyle Anderson's voice sliced through Central Union Bank's marble lobby like a knife. He looked up from his teller station with practiced disdain as the black woman in the designer suit approached his counter. LaToya Jenkins's breath caught. The lunch crowd turned to stare. Kyle's smirk widened as he enjoyed the attention, his voice deliberately loud enough for everyone to hear. "This is a private banking institution, not a check-cashing service," he continued, his eyes scanning her dismissively. "You people always come in here trying to cash fake checks or pull some kind of scam." He pointed toward the door like she was a stray dog. "ATM's outside if you have an EBT card." The lobby fell silent except for the soft clicks of phone cameras starting to record. "Have you ever been treated like your money isn't good enough simply because of how you look?" The digital clock above the teller stations showed 1:15 p.m. A brass placard near the entrance announced Executive Committee meeting 2:01 p.m. The branch closes for lunch at 2:03 p.m. Priya Singh, a freelance journalist in line behind LaToya, discreetly angled her phone to capture the unfolding scene. Her Instagram Live notification appeared. Banking discrimination happening now at Central Union Midtown. LaToya placed her withdrawal slip on the counter with deliberate calm. "I'd like to withdraw $25,000 from my account, please." Kyle's laughter was sharp and mocking. $25,000, lady. That's more money than most people see in a year. What kind of game are you trying to run here?" He snatched the withdrawal slip without looking at it, crumpling it slightly in his hands. "Let me guess. You're going to tell me you're some kind of business owner or executive, right? That's what they all say." The morning rush crowd had thinned, but those remaining were captivated by the escalating confrontation. A well-dressed white woman whispered to her companion, "Someone should call security." An elderly black man shook his head in disgust, but said nothing. Karen Rodriguez, the branch supervisor, approached from her glass office. Her heels clicked authoritatively against the polished floor as she assessed the situation with the practiced eye of someone who'd handled problems before. "What seems to be the issue, Kyle?" Karen asked, though her body language already aligned with her subordinate. "This person is trying to make a suspicious withdrawal," Kyle explained, his voice carrying the weight of institutional authority. $25,000 claims she has an account here. Karen's eyebrows rose dramatically. "That does sound unusual. Ma'am, do you have proper identification and will need employment verification for any large withdrawals?" LaToya reached into her purse, retrieving her driver's license and a platinum banking card that caught the overhead lighting. The card bore the distinctive Central Union logo alongside her name in embossed lettering. Kyle barely glanced at the documents. Anyone can get fake IDs these days. The sophisticated ones even have the right logos. He held up the platinum card, like evidence in a trial. These counterfeits are getting better every month. Priya's live stream viewer count climbed steadily. 847 viewers, then some 200. Comments began flooding in. "This is disgusting. Call the news. Where is this bank?" She kept her phone steady, capturing every word, every dismissive gesture. "I've been banking here for 6 years, LaToya said, her voice maintaining its professional composure despite the mounting humiliation. "My account number is visible on both the card and my identification." Karen stepped closer, creating a united front with Kyle. "Ma'am, we have strict protocols for high-dollar transactions, especially from certain account types. These procedures exist to protect both the bank and our customers from fraudulent activity." The phrase "certain account types" hung in the air like a poison cloud. Priya's phone captured the moment perfectly. Karen's knowing glance at Kyle, the way they positioned themselves to intimidate LaToya, the casual cruelty of institutional bias. A security guard emerged from the back offices. Marcus Davis, a 10-year veteran whose uncomfortable expression revealed his recognition of the situation's true nature. His presence was clearly meant to intimidate, but his reluctance was visible to anyone paying attention. "Marcus, we may need assistance with this situation," Karen announced loudly enough for the entire lobby to hear. "Potential fraud case." LaToya's phone buzzed against her leg. Federal Reserve conference call, 2:45 p.m. She silenced it without looking, but the motion wasn't lost on the growing audience of customers and employees watching the drama unfold. "Look, lady," Kyle said, leaning back in his chair with theatrical exhaustion. "I deal with this stuff every day. People come in here with sob stories, fake documents, trying to charm their way into quick cash. It's not going to work." He gestured broadly at the marble columns and crystal chandeliers. "This is Central Union Bank, not some corner check cashing place. We serve serious clients with serious money." A businessman in line behind Priya muttered, "Just give her the money if she has proper ID." But another customer, a middle-aged white woman, nodded approvingly at Kyle's vigilance. "We're going to need to verify your employment status," Karen continued, pulling out a thick folder of forms. "Income verification, source of funds documentation, and a detailed explanation of what you plan to do with this money." LaToya's leather portfolio rested on the counter, but she hadn't opened it yet. Inside, board meeting documents waited alongside contracts that could reshape the entire banking industry. But these people saw only skin color, making assumptions based on nothing but prejudice. The system shows some irregularities with this account. Kyle lied smoothly, pretending to study his computer screen. Multiple red flags that require additional verification procedures. Priya's live stream hit 1,147 viewers. The hashtag #CureBankingWhileBlack was gaining momentum organically across social platforms. Screenshots of Kyle's dismissive expressions were already being shared on Twitter and Instagram. "Executive meeting in 45 minutes, announced the overhead speaker. "All department heads, report to the conference room by 1:55 p.m. The countdown added urgency to an already tense situation. Karen checked her watch nervously. She needed to prepare for the meeting, but this incident required her attention. "Ma'am, I'm going to have to ask you to step aside while we process this verification," Karen said, gesturing toward a small waiting area near the security desk. "This could take some time." The suggestion was designed to humiliate further, forcing LaToya to wait like a suspect while real customers conducted their business. Marcus shifted uncomfortably, recognizing the psychological manipulation, but bound by his employment to follow Karen's lead. Priya's phone showed 2,000 viewers now, with comments pouring in from people who recognized the systematic nature of what they were witnessing. The story was spreading beyond the bank's marble walls, building momentum that would soon become unstoppable. But none of them knew what was coming next. Executive meeting in 30 minutes, all managers to conference room preparation. The announcement crackled through Central Union system as the lunch crowd began to thin. Priya's live stream had reached 3,400 viewers, with major news outlets beginning to take notice of the unfolding drama. Regional manager Michael Lee burst through the executive elevator doors, his expensive suit and hurried pace immediately commanding attention. Someone had called him about a situation requiring immediate damage control. "What's the problem here?" Michael demanded, his voice carrying 20 years of corporate authority. He scanned the scene quickly. Black woman at counter, crowd of onlookers, phones recording everything. Karen rushed to brief him, speaking in hushed tones designed to exclude LaToya from the conversation. "Potential fraud case, sir. Large withdrawal request with suspicious documentation." Kyle identified multiple red flags in the system. Michael nodded gravely, his expression shifting into crisis management mode. He'd handled situations like this before, or at least situations he assumed were like this. "Ma'am, I'm Michael Lee, Regional Manager for Central Union, he announced formally. I understand there's been some confusion about account verification procedures. LaToya remained composed, but Priya's camera caught the slight tightening around her eyes. There's no confusion, Mr. Lee. I'm simply trying to withdraw money from my own account. These elaborate schemes are becoming increasingly common, Michael continued, loud enough for the growing crowd to hear. Identity theft, document forgery, social engineering, criminals are getting very sophisticated. Marcus Davis stood nearby, his security uniform making him complicit in what was clearly becoming a racially motivated interrogation. His discomfort was visible to anyone watching, but his job required following management directives. Sir, perhaps we should move this discussion to a private office, Marcus suggested quietly, trying to reduce the public spectacle. No, Officer Davis, Michael replied firmly. Transparency is important in fraud investigations. Other customers should see how seriously we take security. Priya's live stream comments exploded with outrage. This is discrimination. Sue them. Someone call the NAACP. Her viewer count hit 5,200 with shares multiplying across every social platform. A well-dressed elderly woman approached the counter, clearly frustrated by the delay. Excuse me, I need to make a deposit before you close for lunch. Ma'am, we're dealing with a security situation, Kyle explained importantly. This woman is trying to withdraw a very large sum with questionable documentation. The elderly customer looked at LaToya with obvious suspicion. Well, I suppose you have to be careful these days. All sorts of people are trying to take advantage. But another voice cut through the tension. A young black professional who'd been watching from the loan officer area. This is ridiculous. She has a proper ID and a bank card. What more do you need? Sir, please don't interfere with bank security procedures, Karen warned. We have protocols for a reason. The lobby was divided into camps. Some customers supported the bank's vigilance, while others recognized the obvious discrimination. Priya's phone captured every reaction, every comment, every moment of institutional bias playing out in real time. I'm going to need additional documentation, Michael announced, pulling out a thick packet of forms. Employment verification, tax returns, proof of income source, and a detailed affidavit explaining the purpose of this withdrawal. LaToya's phone buzzed insistently. Text messages from her assistant. Board members asking about the Federal Reserve call. Another from her lawyer saw the live stream. Want me to intervene? She ignored them all, maintaining her dignified composure despite the mounting humiliation. This is standard procedure for large withdrawals, Michael continued, though everyone knew it wasn't. We're protecting both the bank and the legitimate account holder from potential fraud. Executive meeting in 20 minutes, came another announcement. Final preparation phase. The time pressure was building. Karen kept checking her watch. She needed to finalize reports for the board meeting, but this situation was spiraling beyond her control. Ma'am, we're also going to need to contact your employer to verify your identity, Michael added. What company do you work for? The question was loaded with assumptions. In Michael's mind, this woman was probably unemployed or working minimum wage jobs. The idea that she might be legitimately wealthy never crossed his consciousness. I'm self-employed, LaToya replied calmly. Kyle snorted with derision. Self-employed? Right. Let me guess, you're a consultant or entrepreneur with no real income verification. Priya's live stream audience had grown to 7,800 viewers. Major news organizations were embedding the feed on their websites. The hashtag #CentralUnion discrimination was trending nationally with thousands of people sharing stories of similar treatment. Marcus approached LaToya with obvious reluctance. Ma'am, I'm going to need you to provide additional identification, driver's license, social security card, and any employment documentation you might have. His tone was apologetic, but his position forced compliance with discriminatory policies. LaToya handed over her documents without protest, recognizing that resistance would only escalate the situation. "Marcus, run these through the fraud detection system," Michael instructed. "Check for any red flags or suspicious patterns." The fraud detection system was really just Michael's way of stalling while he figured out how to handle the growing crowd of witnesses and recording devices. A group of young professionals entered the bank, immediately drawn to the commotion. One of them, a black woman in her 30s, recognized what was happening and started her own recording. "Are you seriously harassing this woman over a withdrawal?" she challenged. "This is 2024, not 1964. "Ma'am, please don't interfere with bank security procedures," Karen replied tersely. "We have the right to verify large transactions." "Show me the policy that requires this level of verification," the woman demanded. "I've made larger withdrawals without any problems." Karen's face flushed with anger. "Our policies apply equally to all customers. This has nothing to do with personal characteristics." But everyone could see through the lie. The contrast was obvious. Other customers conducting transactions without harassment, while LaToya faced an inquisition for doing exactly the same thing. Priya's phone battery was dropping, but backup streams had started on multiple platforms. The story was beyond containment now, spreading through news networks, social media, and civil rights organizations. Executive meeting in 15 minutes. All departments head to the conference room immediately. Michael's radio crackled with an urgent message. "Mr. Lee, corporate security needs to speak with you about the live stream situation." The corporate office had noticed lawyers were probably being called. Crisis management protocols were activated, but it was too late to contain the damage. "Ma'am, we're going to need you to wait while we complete our verification process," Michael announced. "This could take several hours." The threat was clear. Submit to humiliation or be denied basic banking services. But LaToya's calm expression never wavered. Even as the institutional weight of discrimination pressed down around her, Marcus looked away, unable to meet her eyes. He knew this was wrong, but his mortgage payments depended on following orders. Priya's live stream hit 12,400 viewers. Comments poured in from civil rights lawyers, financial industry insiders, and journalists recognizing the significance of what they were witnessing. The stage was set for something that would change everything, but none of them suspected what was about to happen. Executive meeting in 10 minutes. All managers report immediately. The overhead announcement seemed to trigger something in LaToya Jenkins. She slowly opened her leather portfolio for the first time. Her movements deliberate and controlled. The crowd of onlookers leaned forward, sensing a shift in the atmosphere. Priya's live stream had reached 15,600 viewers, with notifications flooding her phone as major news outlets began covering the story in real time. Comments streamed past faster than human eyes could read. "Something's about to happen. She's too calm. This woman knows something." LaToya withdrew a single business card, its embossed lettering catching the marble lobby's crystal chandelier light. She placed it gently on the counter in front of Kyle Anderson, who glanced at it dismissively. LaToya Jenkins, President and CEO Jenkins Investment Partners, Kyle read aloud, his voice dripping with skepticism. "Another fake business card. They're making these things in China now for $5 each." But Michael Lee stepped closer, squinting at the card with growing unease. Something about the quality, the specific font, the paperweight was triggering corporate memory. The name Jenkins Investment Partners was stirring recognition somewhere in his executive briefings. "Jenkins Investment Partners," Michael repeated slowly, the name working its way through his consciousness like a virus spreading through a computer system. LaToya handed him a second card. This one bore the Central Union Bank logo alongside legal text in small print. Board of Directors, Preferred Shareholder, Series A, voting rights. The color drained from Michael's face like water from a broken dam. His hands trembled as he held the card, reading and rereading the text as if it might change before his eyes. You're on the board," Michael stammered, his voice barely above a whisper. "I don't just sit on the board, Mr. Lee," LaToya replied, her tone carrying a new quality that made everyone in the lobby lean forward. Jenkins Investment Partners owns 31% of Central Union Corporation. We're the largest single shareholder. The words hit the assembled crowd like a physical force. Kyle's mouth fell open, the business card slipping from his fingers. Karen Rodriguez backed away from the counter as if it had suddenly caught fire. Priya's live stream exploded. The viewer count jumped from 15,600 to 28,400 in 30 seconds. Comments flooded the screen. "Oh my God, she owns the bank." "Plot twist." This is insane. News organizations worldwide were embedding the feed into their breaking news coverage. Marcus Davis shook his head slowly, recognition dawning in his eyes. He'd seen Jenkins's photo in corporate newsletters, annual reports, board meeting announcements. The woman they'd been harassing for 40 minutes was literally their boss's boss. Jenkins Investment Partners, LaToya continued, opening her portfolio to reveal documents that made Kyle's eyes widen further. Acquired our controlling interest 8 months ago, today's executive meeting. She gestured towards the conference room where managers were gathering. That's my quarterly board review. The lobby fell into stunned silence. Customers who'd been watching the discrimination now found themselves witnessing corporate history. Priya's phone captured every facial expression, every moment of realization, every second of the most expensive customer service failure in banking history. The quarterly meeting agenda includes customer experience assessment, LaToya explained, pulling out a thick folder marked Confidential Board Review. I've been conducting anonymous visits to all Central Union branches as an ordinary customer. She looked directly at Kyle, who seemed to be having trouble breathing. Today's interaction was specifically designed to test frontline customer service protocols. You've provided exceptional data for our discrimination analysis. The elderly couple near the loan department exchanged horrified glances. The businessman who'd earlier supported Kyle's vigilance was frantically deleting his social media posts. Even the security cameras seemed to be staring down at them with mechanical judgment. Michael Lee fumbled for his radio. All managers to the conference room immediately. Code red emergency. This is not a drill. But the damage was already done. Priya's livestream had become a viral sensation, with major news outlets embedding the feed directly into their websites. The hashtag #ChorkBankOwnerDiscrimination was trending globally. Bank President William Hargrove's assistant appeared at the elevator doors, her face pale with panic. She'd been monitoring social media and recognized the catastrophic scope of what was unfolding. The Federal Banking Commission received notification of this incident 12 minutes ago. LaToya continued, consulting her phone. Our compliance department has standing orders to report all discrimination events in real time. She showed her screen displaying official government contact numbers. Senator Elizabeth Warren's office is currently monitoring Priya's live stream. The House Financial Services Committee has been notified. Kyle Anderson's face went ashen. He'd never considered that his actions could attract congressional attention or federal investigation. His training had focused on security procedures, not the legal consequences of systematic bias, Ms. Jenkins, Michael began, his corporate training warring with the magnitude of his mistake. I deeply apologize for this misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, Mr. Lee, LaToya interrupted, her executive presence now unmistakable. This was systematic discrimination captured on multiple recording devices. What you're witnessing is exactly why Jenkins Investment Partners requires comprehensive bias training for all portfolio companies. She retrieved another document from her briefcase. Federal Equal Credit Opportunity Act violations carry penalties of up to $500,000 per incident. The Community Reinvestment Act requires banks to serve all customers equally, regardless of race. The legal references weren't empty threats. LaToya's background as a corporate attorney before founding Jenkins Investment Partners made her understand banking law better than most regulators. Our legal department specializes in federal banking compliance, LaToya continued, pulling out her phone to show a contact list that included former Treasury Department officials, federal judges, and congressional staff members. 23 attorneys are currently analyzing Priya's live stream for potential violations. Priya's viewer count had reached 38,000 with backup streams running across multiple platforms. The story was being covered by CNN, MSNBC, Fox News, and international outlets. Banking industry publications were scrambling to understand the implications. Kyle Anderson finally found his voice, though it cracked with desperation. "Ms. Jenkins, I was just following security protocols. I didn't know. This has all been a terrible mistake. Show me the security protocol that authorizes racial profiling," LaToya challenged. "Point to the training manual that says black customers should be assumed fraudulent until proven otherwise." The challenge hung unanswered. Kyle's mouth opened and closed without sound. His 12 years of banking experience suddenly worthless against this level of corporate accountability. Karen Rodriguez attempted damage control. "Ma'am, surely we can resolve this internally through proper channels." This matter became external 40 minutes ago when you threatened to call federal authorities on a bank shareholder. LaToya replied, "Priya's livestream has documented everything for regulatory review." Dig. She opened another app on her phone showing real-time stock market data. Central Union Corporation shares have dropped 4.2% in after-hours trading. That represents approximately $340 million in lost market capitalization. The numbers were staggering and immediate. Social media sentiment analysis showed 89% negative responses to the Central Union hashtags. Corporate crisis management protocols were activating across the banking industry. Jenkins Investment Partners' investment philosophy prioritizes environmental, social, and governance compliance. LaToya explained, "Today's incident represents a material breach of our partnership agreement with Central Union Corporation." She consulted another document marked Confidential Divestiture Protocols. "Our board has pre-approved immediate asset liquidation if discrimination patterns are documented. This livestream provides that documentation." A murmur rippled through the lobby as customers began recognizing the magnitude of what they were witnessing. The elderly woman who'd earlier supported the bank's vigilance now looked mortified. The young professionals who'd defended LaToya were recording everything, sensing historical significance. Marcus Davis approached carefully, his security training warring with his recognition of the situation's complete reversal. "Ms. Jenkins, I want to apologize for my role in this situation. I should have recognized Officer Davis." "You were placed in an impossible position," LaToya interrupted. "Your supervisors created this situation, not you. Your discomfort was actually professional integrity, and that will be noted in our report." The relief on Marcus's face was visible to Priya's camera. Unlike the management staff, he'd been caught between competing loyalties rather than creating the discriminatory policies himself. Stock market trading algorithms have already identified this incident, LaToya observed, checking her financial apps. Institutional investors are receiving automated alerts about potential ESG violations at Central Union Corporation. She showed her phone displaying contact notifications from BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street, massive investment firms that manage trillions in assets. They're all monitoring tonight's response as a test case for corporate accountability. Bank President William Hargrove burst through the elevator doors, his usually perfect hair disheveled from running through corporate headquarters. His assistant had briefed him during the elevator ride. but seeing the situation firsthand still left him speechless. "Ms. Jenkins," Hargrove began, bypassing all subordinates, "I want to personally assure you that this incident does not represent Central Union's values. Mr. Hargrove, this incident represents exactly what Jenkins Investment Partners has been documenting across our portfolio." LaToya replied, "Systematic bias in customer service, inadequate training protocols, and management that enables discrimination rather than preventing it." She pulled out the final document from her portfolio, a comprehensive audit report that made Hargrove's eyes widen. "Our quarterly assessment identified 47 discrimination complaints across Central Union branches in the past 6 months. 78% involved customers of color. The data was irrefutable. Corporate lawyers would spend months trying to mitigate the legal exposure, but the evidence was already public through Priya's documentation. Priya's live stream had reached 45,000 viewers, with clips spreading across every social media platform. The story was already being covered by international news outlets, making this a global public relations crisis for the banking industry. Customers throughout the lobby began applauding spontaneously. The sound built from scattered claps to thunderous ovations as ordinary people celebrated extraordinary accountability. LaToya stood slowly, her bearing completely transformed from victim to executive authority. "Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes our customer service assessment. Mr. Hargrove, shall we discuss the immediate changes your institution will implement?" Kyle Anderson, Karen Rodriguez, and Michael Lee stood frozen like exhibits in a museum. Corporate discrimination in the digital age. Their careers had just ended, but the broader implications were only beginning. William Hargrove stepped into the marble lobby like a general surveying a battlefield after devastating defeat. His 28 years in banking had prepared him for many crises, but not this complete collapse of institutional authority. "Ms. Jenkins," he began, his voice carefully measured despite the chaos surrounding them, "I want to personally address this unprecedented situation." LaToya remained positioned at the teller counter, her briefcase now open like a command center, displaying the financial weapons that could destroy Hargrove's career. Documents marked confidential board review and divestiture protocols spread across the marble surface. "Mr. Hargrove, unprecedented situations require unprecedented solutions," LaToya replied, her tone carrying the authority of someone who'd just revealed ownership of the battlefield. "Let's discuss the metrics that brought us to this moment." She lifted her tablet, displaying real-time analytics that made Hargrove's face tighten with recognition. Jenkins Investment Partners tracks customer satisfaction across all portfolio companies. Central Union Corporation currently ranks 68% in service quality, the lowest in our financial services division. Priya's live stream had reached 52,000 viewers with major news networks providing split-screen coverage. The banking industry was watching their largest discrimination incident unfold in real time. "Our comprehensive audit data shows troubling patterns," LaToya continued, consulting a thick folder that Hargrove recognized from board meeting materials. 47 formal discrimination complaints filed against Central Union branches in the past 6 months alone. She handed him a detailed breakdown that made his hands tremble. 78% of these complaints involved customers of color. 63% occurred at branches where management demonstrated similar bias patterns to what we witnessed today. Kyle Anderson stood frozen near his teller station, understanding that his career was collapsing in real time. Karen Rodriguez clutched her supervisor badge like a life preserver, but everyone could see she was drowning. The financial implications extend far beyond stock price volatility, LaToya explained, opening another app showing after-hours trading data. Jenkins Investment Partners' 31% ownership position gives us significant influence over corporate governance and executive compensation. Hargrove pulled out his own tablet, frantically consulting crisis management protocols that seemed inadequate for this level of corporate meltdown. Ms. Jenkins, what immediate actions would demonstrate our commitment to addressing these systemic issues? Accountability starts at the source, LaToya replied, gesturing toward the 3 employees who'd orchestrated her humiliation. Mr. Anderson will be terminated immediately for violation of federal anti-discrimination laws. Ms. Rodriguez faces suspension pending full investigation of her supervisory practices. She consulted legal documents that made Hargrove's legal training recognize serious federal exposure. Mr. Lee's regional management position requires immediate review. His response to discrimination complaints across multiple branches suggests pattern compliance failures. Michael Lee's face went ashen as he calculated the career implications. Regional managers who enabled systematic discrimination rarely found employment elsewhere in banking. The Community Reinvestment Act requires member banks to serve all community segments equally, LaToya continued, her legal background evident in every precisely cited regulation. Today's incident, combined with our broader discrimination data, represents what federal regulators classify as pattern and practice violations. Hargrove's phone was buzzing with calls from corporate attorneys, federal regulators, and board members who'd seen the live stream coverage. The legal exposure was mounting by the minute. Priya's camera captured the moment when Hargrove realized the full scope of his crisis. His institution faced potential federal investigation, class action lawsuits, and the loss of their largest shareholder. Jenkins Investment Partners maintains relationships with institutional investors managing approximately $3 trillion in assets, LaToya explained, showing her contact list. BlackRock, Vanguard, and State Street are all monitoring tonight's response for ESG compliance violations. The threat wasn't subtle. If major institutional investors followed Jenkins's lead in divesting from Central Union, the resulting stock collapse could take years to recover from. Our environmental, social, and governance assessment directly influences investment decisions across our entire portfolio, LaToya continued. Tonight's discrimination incident represents material breach of corporate responsibility standards. She pulled out pre-prepared legal documents that made Hargrove's eyes widen. Federal banking regulations require immediate reporting of civil rights violations. Our compliance department submitted preliminary notifications to the FDIC, OCC, and Federal Reserve 40 minutes ago. Marcus Davis stood nearby, his security role making him witness to the complete power reversal playing out before him. His earlier discomfort was being vindicated as professional integrity rather than insubordination. The immediate consequences require specific timelines, LaToya announced, consulting what appeared to be pre-written ultimatum terms. Central Union Corporation has 24 hours to present comprehensive reform proposals addressing systematic discrimination patterns. She outlined requirements with boardroom precision that demonstrated months of preparation. Point 1. Immediate termination of all employees involved in today's incident with detailed investigation of their historical discrimination patterns. Cost approximately $200,000 in severance and legal fees. Point 2. Mandatory bias recognition training for all customer-facing employees within 60 days. 40 hours initial certification, annual recertification required. Implementation cost $12 million across all branches. Point 3. Real-time discrimination monitoring system using artificial intelligence to analyze customer interactions. Warning protocols alert management to potential bias incidents. Development cost $45 million. Annual maintenance $8 million. Hargrove's tablet showed the financial implications in real time. The numbers were staggering, but the alternative regulatory shutdown and complete investor flight would have cost billions. Point 4. Independent civil rights ombudsman reporting directly to the board of directors. This position investigates discrimination, complaints with authority to terminate employees, and modify policies. Annual budget $5 million, including staff and investigative resources. Point 5. Community Investment Fund totaling $25 million supporting minority-owned businesses and financial literacy programs. This demonstrates genuine commitment beyond policy changes. Priya's live-stream audience watched corporate accountability play out with unprecedented transparency. Comments poured in from banking industry insiders recognizing the historical significance of these demands. Our timeline is non-negotiable. Latoya emphasized Jenkins Investment Partners board meets tomorrow morning to review Central Union's response. Acceptance means continued partnership. Rejection triggers immediate divestiture of our $1.2 billion position. She showed real-time market data indicating pre-market trading algorithms were already pricing in potential institutional investor flight. Losing Jenkins Investment Partners would likely trigger follow-on divestiture from other ESG-focused investors. The mathematical threat was carefully calculated. Combined institutional divestiture could represent $3.8 billion in investment flight, triggering a death spiral in credit ratings and regulatory standing. Kyle Anderson finally found his voice, desperation cracking through his earlier arrogance. "Ms. Jenkins, I have 2 kids and a mortgage. I was just doing my job following bank policies." "Show me the bank policy authorizing racial profiling," Latoya challenged. "Produce the training manual instructing employees to assume black customers are criminals." Kyle's mouth opened without sound. No such policy existed in writing because federal law prohibited exactly what he'd been practicing for years. Karen Rodriguez attempted one final defense. "Ma'am, we were following established security protocols for large withdrawals." "Mrs. Rodriguez, I've withdrawn larger amounts from this same branch without any verification procedures," Latoya replied. "The only variable was my skin color." Priya's phone showed 67,000 viewers now, with international banking publications scrambling to analyze the regulatory implications. The European Union was already citing this incident in discussions about American banking oversight. The Federal Reserve requires all member banks to demonstrate community reinvestment compliance, Latoya continued, consulting federal banking regulations. Systematic discrimination violations can trigger complete operational review and potential charter revocation. Hargrove checked his watch. Corporate lawyers were waiting. Federal regulators were calling. And the most powerful shareholder in banking history was demanding immediate answers. Jenkins Investment Partners believes in rehabilitation over destruction. Latoya observed her tone, suggesting negotiation rather than annihilation. "We're prepared to work with Central Union on comprehensive reform that creates industry-leading inclusion standards." She began packing her briefcase with methodical precision. However, this cooperation requires genuine accountability, not cosmetic changes designed to minimize legal exposure. The quiet ultimatum contained more power than shouting or threats ever could. Economic leverage was enforcing social justice more effectively than decades of protest or litigation. Hargrove understood that his next 24 hours would determine whether Central Union Corporation survived as an independent institution or became a cautionary tale in business school case studies. Priya's live stream had documented the most expensive customer service failure in banking history, and the bill was still being calculated. 24 hours later, William Hargrove stood before an emergency board meeting in Central Union's executive conference room, his prepared statement trembling slightly in his hands. The mahogany table reflected the tension as directors who'd flown in from across the country waited for his response to the Jenkins ultimatum. "Ladies and gentlemen," Hargrove began, "Central Union Corporation accepts full responsibility for yesterday's discrimination incident. We're implementing immediate and comprehensive reforms. Priya's original livestream had reached 3.2 million views across all platforms. The hashtag, Bajro Bank Owner Reveal, dominated social media for 18 hours, sparking conversations about systemic bias in financial institutions worldwide. Kyle Anderson has been terminated effective immediately, Hargrove announced to the board. Our internal investigation revealed a disturbing pattern of discriminatory behavior spanning 7 years, with 34 documented complaints we failed to address properly. The investigation had been swift and damning. HR records showed multiple instances where minority customers faced additional verification procedures that white customers never encountered. LaToya Jenkins sat at the head of the conference table, her position as principal shareholder now unquestioned. "And Ms. Rodriguez?" she inquired. "Karen Rodriguez has been dismissed for supervisory negligence and enabling discriminatory practices. Her failure to intervene in obvious bias violations represents management failure at the highest level." Michael Lee had already submitted his resignation, understanding that his regional oversight had allowed systematic discrimination to flourish across multiple branches. His departure would trigger investigations at other locations where similar patterns might exist. "The Jenkins standards have been approved unanimously by our board," Hargrove continued, consulting the comprehensive reform package. "Implementation begins today with a $67 million budget allocation for the first year alone." The financial commitment was substantial, but necessary. Alternative scenarios involving federal intervention and mass investor flight would have cost billions. Marcus Davis entered the conference room wearing a new badge, Director of Compliance and Customer Advocacy. His promotion from security guard to executive management had been approved unanimously, recognizing his integrity during the crisis. Our bias training program launches Monday across all 342 branches. Marcus reported every customer-facing employee will complete 40 hours of certification within 60 days. The curriculum includes implicit bias recognition, de-escalation techniques, and federal anti-discrimination law. Priya Singh had been hired as the bank's external communications director, her citizen journalism background making her invaluable for transparency initiatives. Her insider perspective on discrimination documentation would help prevent future incidents. The AI monitoring system goes live in beta testing next week. Priya announced real-time analysis of customer interactions will flag potential bias incidents for immediate supervisor review. The technology wasn't theoretical. Jenkins investment partners had invested in cutting-edge discrimination detection software that could identify problematic language patterns and escalation triggers in real time. Dr. Angela Davis has accepted our offer to serve as independent civil rights ombudsman. Hargrove added, "The former Justice Department attorney would report directly to the board with authority to investigate complaints and terminate employees for violations." Her appointment sent shockwaves through the banking industry. Dr. Davis's reputation for uncompromising civil rights enforcement meant Central Union was serious about fundamental change rather than cosmetic reforms. "Community investment initiatives begin immediately," LaToya noted, consulting implementation timelines. The $25 million fund will provide low-interest loans to minority-owned businesses and financial literacy programs in underserved communities. The ripple effects extended beyond Central Union. Competing banks had voluntarily adopted similar reforms, recognizing that Jenkins's discrimination monitoring was likely expanding to other portfolio companies. "Federal regulators have commended our rapid response," Hargrove reported carefully. "The Federal Reserve, FDIC, and Office of the Comptroller of the Currency are all monitoring our progress as a potential model for industry-wide reform." What could have been a regulatory nightmare had become a case study in proactive accountability. Federal agencies were citing Central Union's response as an example of how financial institutions should address discrimination incidents. Stock price has recovered completely and reached new highs, Hargrove observed, checking market data. Investor confidence in our reform commitment has actually strengthened our market position. Jenkins Investment Partners' decision to increase, rather than decrease their investment, had sent powerful signals to other institutional investors. ESG-focused funds were viewing Central Union as a transformation success story. 6 months from today, we'll conduct a comprehensive assessment of these programs, Latoya announced. Success means continued partnership and potential expansion of Jenkins's investment. Failure means immediate divestiture and public documentation of shortcomings. The accountability measures ensured that reforms would be implemented genuinely rather than merely announced for public relations purposes. Priya's documentation had sparked congressional hearings on banking discrimination, with Central Union's transformation being cited as proof that economic pressure could drive faster change than regulatory enforcement alone. This incident demonstrates that market-based accountability creates more effective reform than government intervention, Latoya reflected during a Harvard Business School case study interview. When discrimination becomes expensive, institutions change quickly. The quiet revolution had succeeded beyond anyone's expectations. Economic justice had proven more powerful than legal justice, creating lasting change that protected every customer who followed. Central Union Bank learned that serving all customers with dignity wasn't just morally imperative, it was financially essential for survival in the modern marketplace. 1 year after the Central Union incident, Latoya Jenkins addressed the Global Banking Equality Summit, representing an industry transformed by a single moment of documented accountability. Dignity isn't negotiable in financial services, she told delegates from 47 countries. When we demanded change, we created a model that now protects millions of customers worldwide. The numbers told an extraordinary story. Banking discrimination complaints dropped 52% across institutions implementing Jenkins standards. Minority business lending increased 34% industry-wide as banks competed to demonstrate inclusive practices. Priya Singh's documentary Owning Justice, A Banking Revolution, premiered at the Cannes Film Festival, winning the Palme d'Or for Best Documentary. Her citizen journalism had evolved into a platform exposing systemic inequality across financial services globally. One smartphone recording changed everything, Priya reflected in interviews. It proves that ordinary people can hold extraordinary power accountable when they document the truth and share their stories. The Jenkins Investment Partners Equality Fund had awarded $127 million in business loans to minority entrepreneurs, creating over 8,400 jobs nationwide. Success stories emerged from every community where discriminatory barriers had been systematically removed. Marcus Davis became a sought-after speaker at banking conferences. His transformation from security guard to compliance director inspiring similar diversity initiatives. His insider perspective on institutional bias made him invaluable for identifying problems before they escalated. Economic consequences speak louder than moral arguments, Latoya observed during a Stanford Graduate School of Business lecture. When discrimination becomes expensive, corporations evolve rapidly. Federal banking regulators adopted Jenkins standards as recommended guidelines for all financial institutions. The Department of Justice cited Central Union's transformation as proof that market-based accountability could drive faster change than litigation. These real-life stories demonstrate that strategic documentation can overcome institutional bias more effectively than confrontation. Latoya's calculated response created touching stories of transformation that continue inspiring change across industries. Black stories like this remind us that preparation meeting opportunity can reshape entire systems. Life stories of dignity defended through economic leverage prove that justice takes many powerful forms. Kyle Anderson eventually completed comprehensive bias training and now works for a credit union where he shares his experience as a cautionary tale about unconscious discrimination. His willingness to acknowledge past mistakes became part of industry-wide education efforts. The ripple effects continue expanding. Every time a customer receives respectful service, regardless of race, the Central Union legacy lives on. Every banker who chooses inclusion over bias honors those who demanded accountability. Corporate America transformed how it viewed discrimination incidents. The Jenkins model spread to healthcare, retail, and hospitality sectors, with investment firms adopting economic leverage strategies to drive social progress across industries. Real stories have real power, LaToya concluded her summit address. When we document injustice and demand accountability through strategic action, we create the change our communities deserve. If you've experienced discrimination in banking or financial services, share your story in the comments below. Your voice matters. Your experience creates change. These touching stories of quiet power overcoming systemic bias need amplification. Subscribe to Black Soul Stories for more accounts of dignity defended and justice served through strategic action. Together, we document the truth and demand the respect all customers deserve.